At some point in the last year, you cried over something embarrassing. Maybe it was a song that came on when you weren't ready for it. Maybe it was a TV show, a commercial, a video of a dog being reunited with its owner. Maybe you were driving alone and something just hit you and suddenly your eyes were wet and you were gripping the steering wheel thinking, what is wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. But here's what's strange. You are the only animal on this planet that does that. Not just the only mammal, the only animal. Full stop. Dogs whimper when they're in pain. Elephants have been observed standing over their dead for days. Chimpanzees, our closest relatives, sharing 98.7% of our DNA, will scream and thrash when they're distressed. But not one of them produces emotional tears. Not one of them has a body that responds to sadness or beauty or grief or even joy by flooding their eyes with liquid. Only you. So why? Why would evolution give exactly one species on this entire planet the ability to cry emotional tears? What problem was it solving? And why does it still happen to you, alone in your car, over a song you've heard 100 times? The answer starts with something most people don't know. You don't actually have one type of tears. You have three. The first type is basal tears. These are the tears your eyes produce constantly, every second of every day, whether you feel anything or not. They are a maintenance fluid. They keep your cornea lubricated, protect your eyes from dust and bacteria, and deliver oxygen to the surface of your eye. Without them, your vision would deteriorate within hours. You are always crying at a microscopic level just to see. The second type is reflex tears. These are the ones that flood your eyes when you chop an onion, or walk into cold wind, or get something caught in your eye. They are a purely mechanical response. Your eye detects an irritant and produces a flood of fluid to wash it out. Fast, functional, no emotion involved. A robot with eyes would produce reflex tears. The third type is the one that matters: emotional tears. And here is where it gets strange. Because when scientists in the 1980s first analyzed the chemical composition of emotional tears under a laboratory microscope, they found something nobody expected. Emotional tears are chemically different from the other two types. They contain higher concentrations of stress hormones, specifically ACTH, the hormone your body produces when you are under psychological pressure. They contain prolactin, the same hormone associated with deep states of calm and reflection. They contain leucine and cephalin, a natural painkiller your body produces when it needs to manage suffering. And they contain manganese, a mineral that in high concentrations is associated with anxiety and mood disorders. In other words, when you cry emotional tears, your body is actively flushing stress chemicals out through your eyes. This is not a metaphor. This is biochemistry. The reason you feel better after a good cry is not psychological, it is physical. Your body is literally expelling the chemical residue of emotional pain through your tear ducts. Crying is a stress detox system that evolution built directly into your face. But that still doesn't explain why it exists at all. Because the question isn't just what crying does for the person crying, the question is why it produces tears that other people can see. In 1985, biochemist William Frey published research that proposed something that seems obvious in hindsight, but had never been formally argued before. He suggested that emotional crying evolved primarily as a social signal, not a private release, a public broadcast. Think about what a crying face actually communicates. The moment another person sees tears running down your face, something happens in their brain that they cannot control. Their mirror neurons fire, their own stress response activates, their attention locks onto you completely. Something in the human nervous system is hardwired to treat a crying face as an emergency signal that demands an immediate response. Frey's argument was that emotional tears evolved as a long-distance distress call, one that is visible, honest, and almost impossible to ignore. Before language existed, if you were in pain or terrified or overwhelmed, your options for communicating that were limited. You could scream, but screaming attracts predators. You could approach someone physically and make contact, but that requires proximity and takes time. Tears gave our ancestors something they had never had before: a silent, visible, long-range signal that said, "I need help," without making a sound. And here is the part that makes this theory genuinely compelling. Human eyes are unique among primates in one specific way. We have the largest visible white area around our irises, called the sclera, of any primate on Earth. Chimpanzees have dark sclera that barely show. Gorillas have dark sclera. Almost every other primate has dark sclera. We don't. Our eyes are designed by millions of years of evolution to be readable across a distance. You can tell where a human is looking from 30 feet away. You cannot do that with a chimpanzee. Our eyes were already built to communicate. And tears running down a face with highly visible white sclera are one of the most readable emotional signals the human body produces. It is almost impossible to look at a crying person and feel nothing. Your brain will not let you. In 2011, neuroscientist Noam Sobel at the Weizmann Institute ran an experiment that should have made headlines everywhere but somehow didn't. He collected emotional tears from women watching sad films. Then he had men smell those tears without knowing what they were smelling and compared their responses to men who smelled saline solution as a control. The results were striking. Men who smelled the emotional tears showed measurable reductions in testosterone. Their brain scans showed reduced activity in regions associated with aggression and sexual motivation. Tears contain chemosignals, chemical messages that alter the behavior and physiology of the people exposed to them. Crying doesn't just send a visual signal to the people around you, it sends a chemical one. Being near someone who is crying literally changes your hormonal state. It chemically suppresses aggression in the people around you. Think about what that means for a small group of early humans trying to survive on an open plain. Someone is injured, or grieving, or overwhelmed. They cry. The chemical signal spreads through the group. Aggression drops. Attention focuses. The group moves toward care instead of conflict. Crying doesn't just ask for help. It chemically creates the conditions for help to be given. But here is the part that cuts both ways. If emotional tears are a signal almost impossible to ignore, that reduces aggression in witnesses, that triggers involuntary empathy, then they are also a tool. And humans figured that out a very long time ago. Crocodile tears is an expression dating back to the 14th century. The idea that someone can cry without genuinely feeling the emotion behind it. And the science confirms this is real. Humans can produce emotional-looking tears through voluntary effort. Actors do it. Manipulative people do it. Children figure it out surprisingly early. A 2019 study found that people who score high on psychopathy measures are significantly better at suppressing their empathy response to crying faces. They can look at a crying person and feel nothing, which means they can use crying as a tool without the emotional cost that makes most people reluctant to weaponize it. The same signal that binds communities together, that suppresses aggression, that evolved to ask for help without making a sound, can be faked, deployed strategically, used to manipulate the very empathy response it was designed to trigger. Crying is the most honest signal the human body produces, and it is also the one that has been used against us more than almost any other. So where does that leave you? Sitting in your car, crying over a song. Your body has detected an emotional state significant enough to trigger its oldest social broadcasting system, the one that evolved before language, before civilization, before you had words for what you were feeling. The tears on your face are carrying stress hormones out of your bloodstream. Your brain is releasing natural painkillers. And if anyone else were in that car, their aggression would be dropping, their mirror neurons firing, something in them moving toward you before they even decided to. You are not malfunctioning. You are doing something exactly one species on this planet evolved to do. Something that operates on visual, chemical, and neurological channels simultaneously. That turns private pain into a public signal. That built the social bonds that let small groups of frightened animals become the dominant species on Earth. The embarrassment you feel about crying is roughly 200 years old. It came from cultures that decided emotional expression was weakness. The crying itself is at least 200,000 years old. One of those things is a recent cultural opinion. The other is you. Next time it happens, the song, the commercial, the moment you weren't ready for, maybe instead of gripping the steering wheel asking what is wrong with you, you just let it happen because nothing is wrong with you. Something is very, very right.